We're here.
Trish, are you there?
I am.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Edge Television broadcast.
Thank you.
Well, hey, we're gonna have a good time tonight, guys. I want to know about the future, what the future holds, and I don't necessarily want to look at a tarot card because that scares the crap out of me with all those freaky pictures on there, man. I feel like if you've got tarot cards at night, they like get up and walk around. You know what I mean?
I think they do too.
Well, welcome to the program, guys. And for those that have never met you, one of you or both of you, just kind of introduce yourself to our audience here about how you got into writing this book. What's the genesis of the book of Sensing the Future?
Rob and I just looked at each other like, oh, okay.
Your turn.
No, I think this grew out of our interest in synchronicity, meaningful coincidence, because we'd written 4 or 5 books before this about synchronicity. And the more we started researching it and collecting people's stories, the more we realized that precognition, which is sensing the future, really happens most often when synchronicity is a component.
And I guess part of it is that of all the psychic abilities, telepathy, clairvoyance, telekinesis, precognition is the most controversial as well. Just a lot of people don't believe you can tell the future, and a lot of people don't want to believe because they think of it in terms of predestination set in stone, but that's not.
And they also think of it as an omen.
As an omen, right.
Something bad.
In fact, when we first started writing this, we had precognition in the title, and the editor told us, well, I'm not sure that people know what that means. So we go to a dog park every day, take our dog out, and so we started asking people if they knew what precognition was, and they didn't. But a lot of people knew what premonitions and omens were, and as Trish said, there's kind of a negative feel to those words. So we're trying to bring some light onto premonitions, precognition.
Well, now for those that are of sort of maybe in the Christian strain, I mean, certainly the Bible speaks of having dreams and visions, so it's not like it's a spooky thing, like you're conjuring up the devil if you're looking. But sometimes we can't get the conversation started because inevitably somebody will say, well, if it works, give me the lottery number, you know? And so it's a big laugh, and you can't get past that, you know? It's like, okay, well, forget it. If somebody says that to me, it's like, I don't even want to talk to you, okay? Because you know what? I want meaningful conversations, you know? But everyone's had, I think everyone has, and people in the live chat, you can chime in if you had, just put a yes or a K or something. Premonitions or a feeling that something is going to happen. And so is that like an innate ability that we've all been born with, and it's just kind of been pushed aside for the hard-nosed reality of life in general?
I think it was probably something that was really common when we lived in caves and in tribes. But, you know, in the 21st century, it's like these abilities have atrophied because we don't use them. Now, here's a funny story. In November, we decided to lease a car. So we went down to a Mazda dealer. Okay. And the guy who closed the deal for us, who was the financial guy, asked us what we did. So we told him we were writers and that we had just written a book on precognition. He goes, oh, my God, I got a story for you. He says, 3 times, you were just talking about the lottery. This guy won the lottery 3 times based on numbers that he dreamed. I said, oh, come on, how can somebody do that? And he goes, well, I have really good dream recall. I believe that I can dream the winning numbers. And his biggest jackpot was like $250,000. So how can you argue with that? You know, some people have talents in different areas. His is dreaming.
But I think that we all have this intuitive ability, precognitive ability to see things in the future, at least 2 seconds in the future. And what I mean by that is that I've heard this story. We've had this experience more than once. I've heard it from other people. Suddenly slamming on the brakes while you're driving, not knowing why you're doing it. And then seconds later, a car swings right right through the intersection and never stopped at all. And you had the green light. Things
That's
like
following an impulse.
Right. And or thinking of a word or an unusual phrase just moments before somebody says the exact same thing, maybe on television or radio. It's like, why did I think that unusual term, that phrase, just at that moment? And why did and
then what does it mean?
Right. Yeah.
I had something. Let me put this to you. This one just come up while you guys was talking there. I was driving down the road with a friend, a real good friend. I was going to go to a place called City Barbecue, and in the midst of the conversation, we talked. Somehow or another, cowbells come up. And of course, cowbells in music is always a good thing. You can't never get enough. But start talking. And somehow that came up, and then we pulled right at a stoplight, and right in front of us was a truck whose on the hitch was 2 cowbells. I'm thinking, what the heck was that?
Oh, that's a good one.
Okay. So that got my attention. Okay. So we went in there, and so I'm thinking at that point there, I'm thinking, well, it could be just an obscure coincidence, but my spiritual attunement is on. I'm looking now. I'm thinking, okay, what's happening? And then all of a sudden, I had this feeling. I thought, you know what? And I told the person I was with, I told my friend, I said, I'm going to get a free cake. They go, what? I go, yes, I'm going to get a free cake. And the waiter comes over and he gives us some French fries and everything. And he goes, hey man, how would you like a free cake?
That's great.
I am not kidding. But the cowbell synchronicity, I mean, that went beyond it. They got my attention, but then I must have tuned into the realm. And then I actually sort of...
You were in the flow.
And a cluster of events were happening. That's cool.
That's great.
Yeah. Not only that, of course, the conversation lent itself to the fact that it was one of those, and I'm pretty sure people watching the program will say, sometimes you engage in a conversation with somebody that you were supposed to have, because it usually benefits them in such a way, and the information that you bring corroborates the fact that this is like a divine appointment, and that the conversation with the waiter continued into that strain, and I knew that we were supposed to be talking to him. So you're right. You say a cluster. That was kind of it. But how come we can't have more of that? Why is that so spotty, guys?
Yeah.
Well, part of it is, I mean, in the book, this is really pretty much a self-help book in that we give people pointers. First of all, you've got to be open and receptive to the idea that synchronicity and precognition is something that happens to everybody. And if you can create, first of all, that inner climate, it just becomes much easier. Like, it's funny that, okay, you were driving in your car and you were relaxed, you were going out for a bite to eat, things were non-stressful. And then this cowbell thing happens. Okay, so now it's got your attention. And once you're in that flow, it's much easier to experience these things and to not dismiss them is meaningless.
So it really helps if you're interested in the mysteries of the unknown, the paranormal. If you have that interest, you're more likely to have experiences. There's another one I was just thinking of when you told your story about the cowbells. I was driving along, and I guess I was kind of bored, and I thought I'd like something unusual to happen. And just as I thought that, this semi pulls out in front of me, and I have to slam on my brakes, and I come right up to the back end of it, and there's a sign on the back that says, "Be careful what you wish for." Wow.
That's a good one.
But then I thought, wow, that's kind of a negative thing. But then I went on to Starbucks to get a coffee, and I pulled in, and I had just had a $50 bill, and she just acted like she didn't have any change. Just wave, take it, it's yours. So I got free coffee at home.
Well, there you go. Maybe we can cash in on that.
Yeah, right.
I want those lotto numbers.
But okay, so we're talking about maybe sort of a lifestyle. Maybe is it a choice that we can make to move into these synchronicities? And of course, we're going to move in, and we're talking about dreams too, but they seem like they go hand in hand. So is it a choice that by use of paying attention, training ourselves, that we can come back to maybe a place? Trish, you said something about coming out of the cave. Now, when I came out of the cave, all I want to do was eat. Okay. And then
you need your precognition to know where the animals were.
And as an official caveman, I want to drag the woman back into the cave. I wasn't thinking much about those other things. But so I'm just saying, so can we train ourselves then and get better at it?
Absolutely. One of the things that we're surrounded with is signs and symbols. Just like, okay, you noticed your cowbells. Rob wanted something unusual to happen, and he gets this sign. But, sometimes symbols aren't that easily recognizable. For instance, a number of years ago, a co-author and I had written a tarot book. There are those tarot cards. And we went to, it was a book conference on Jekyll Island. And we were going to do a signing. We were going to have our books there, do the whole thing. So we get into the hotel room. Nothing's open, no windows, no sliding glass door, nothing like that. All of a sudden, Phyllis, my co-author, squeals on the other side of the room. A bee just stung me. I said, a bee? How did a bee get in here? Nothing's open. She goes, forget about how it got in. What's it mean? So what it meant, we figured out, was that we were going to somehow get stung during this weekend. Sure enough, we walked downstairs. The woman who organized the conference said, oh, ladies, I'm so glad you're here, but your books haven't arrived. And Phyllis and I looked at each other and we thought, okay, the bee knew. And sure enough, our books never arrived that entire weekend.
So they were stung.
We were stung.
Yeah. So we have book signing with no books.
With no books.
Well, you don't want to get stung, and pain has a way of sharpening our senses anyway.
True. But what I'm saying is most people, who don't believe or who aren't receptive to this would have just said, oh, this stupid bee stung me.
Right.
And wouldn't have related it to anything. But Phyllis and I were both on the same page with this stuff, and we knew it meant something.
Yeah, another one, symbol. Now, this seems kind of obvious, but when it happened to this man, it didn't really occur to him at the moment. He was on an airplane and went into the restroom and dropped his billfold into the toilet. And, he pulls it out of there and he's cursing and cleaning it off. And what he failed to realize, and it was coming down the road, is his finances just
going down the toilet.
Went down the toilet, and he realized that he had the sign that it was coming.
And this was flight. Author Robert Moss, who writes a lot of books on dreams, and he says, and I think he's right, that when these things happen, it's a good idea to try to interpret them as you might a dream.
And you can also incubate experiences like that by just asking for something for something that you're wondering about in the future, and then step outside or wherever you are and just look for the first thing that shows up, whether it's a song on the radio, listen to the lyrics, or somebody who walks up to you and says something. What was those words? Or you overhear two people talking. Try to interpret that in terms of the question you asked about something coming up in your future.
We got a question from Cleet out of the live chat. It says, are children more likely to be predisposed of future events than adults?
I certainly think so, because they don't have all the prejudices that we've, accumulated as adults. They kind of live in a magical place.
Yeah, they haven't learned to be logical yet.
Yeah,
totally logical. And so by the time they're 5 or 6, they're starting to become getting trained, indoctrinated, to become more logical, which is of course important, but you tend to lose some of those fantastical experiences they had as younger children.
Yeah,
and told that they weren't real.
Okay. All right. We have this question here from Philip in Georgia. It says, is synchronicity the same as visualizing what future events you want to have happen?
No, that's totally different. I think it's great to visualize what you want to happen because it's more likely to happen then. But synchronicity is when there's no cause and effect, and whatever happens is meaningful to you. That was Carl Jung's explanation of what synchronicity is. Like, one of the examples we always give is you're thinking about somebody you haven't seen for 30 years. You log into Facebook and there's a Facebook request or a friend request from that person. There's no cause and effect between those two things, but it's meaningful to you.
But it's in a sense, it's a thought that manifests in a similar outer event. And sometimes, it's immediate, but sometimes that event could take place years down the road, but it still can be a synchronicity because it's significant to the person.
When a synchronicity happens, an arranged event that lets you know something's going on, does that mean that it's a metaphysical event that's happening?
You just asked the most difficult question. I always go back to, there was a quantum physicist named David Bohm, and he believed that beneath our daily reality, which he called the explicate or the unfolded order, he believed that there was a hidden order, which he called the implicate, and that everything came out of that, even space and time. So, it may just be as simple as that. It may be quantum physics. It may be, the way the matrix of reality actually works.
And like synchronicity is something that occurs right on the borderline between the everyday world and this deeper underlying world or reality that we all come from. And so synchronicity is something that is not normal. It's not cause and effect, but it alerts us. It's about awakening our awareness.
For the uber religious watching the show, and I try to keep everybody at the table, the non-believers, believers, the dogmatic, the atheists. I'm trying to keep everybody in the same room, so to speak, on the program. But for those uber religious who say that this type of talk or discussion is like talking to the devil, really, isn't it just a matter of semantics? And I mentioned earlier, the Bible says you'll have dreams and you'll have visions. Well, somebody could easily say, you'll have a metaphysical dream and you shall know the future, or you have a metaphysical vision where you see these great soaring events. So if you could say vision and say like it's just written in the Bible, or you could say metaphysical event and describing the same thing. But for one, it's say, well, because you use the word, or if you ascribe the word to that, then it becomes the devil. But if you just look at it in the plain reading of the Bible, then it's what God intended. So isn't it just semantics, and people shouldn't really cower in fear and say this is all devil talk?
Yeah, I mean, these things happen, and whether you're super religious or you're an atheist or you're a skeptic, I mean,
well listen, I'm not uber religious, and I've experienced it, and I'm not conjuring the devil.
No. Besides, look how many things, there are so many references in the Bible to people being given information about the future.
Well, there is a man who is an atheist and very skeptical. In fact, his whole entire life is built on skepticism and debunking the paranormal, and he's head of an organization that does so. But yet he wrote a column
in Scientific American.
In Scientific American, that something that happened to him that he just couldn't explain. He was getting married. It was the day of his marriage. And his wife, she was from Germany, and she kind of missed her family, missed her grandfather, who she was very close to. And they have the ceremony. She wished she had somebody from her family there, but there wasn't anybody. They have the ceremony, and then they go back to the room in their house, in their bedroom, and there's music playing. And they look at each other. Where's that music? And it's that old radio. That's my grandfather's radio. That radio hasn't worked for years. We tried to get it started, and it played on for a couple of hours, these love songs. And after that, it never worked again. No matter what he did, he could never get it going. And his wife said, my grandfather's here. I know he's here. And so this super skeptical man said in this article, we have to be a little more open. We have to be open to this bigger picture and not always just completely block such things out. So it's like an awakening for him.
Well, as I explained, there was a a video on YouTube by a guy named Kim Clement who described Trump becoming the president in 2007. Didn't say Donald Trump in there. He said you use words like a Trump will arise, and this Trump will not be a politician, and then a witch will try to defeat him. I mean, this is 2007.
Wow.
And I got a better one than that. You want to go? Sorry, I interrupted.
No, let him finish. So what?
No, that's it. Go ahead.
Oh,
okay. In 1958, there was a Western called Trackdown. It is about the Texas Rangers. And they had one episode that was called Trump Trackdown. And the main character that was so it's a typical story. The stranger comes to town, little town, Western town. His name is Trump. I think it was Wilbur Trump.
Really?
And he's like a preacher, and he comes in, gathers all the people together, and he says he's going to save them. He's going to build a big wall and save them. And when I saw this clip, a 4-minute clip from this, I thought this has to be fake. I mean that's too much. But I checked it out, and it's an actual episode of that show.
1958.
1958.
Well, I mean, looking at it that way, even there was everybody talks about the Simpsons episode of Donald Trump coming down the tower or his escalator with his wife, and said he's going to be the president. So how did the Simpsons know?
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, I think that's part of that is when you sense the future through creativity. Mm-hmm. We collected a lot of information for this book on, artists, musicians, and writers who really tuned into the future through what they were doing.
Mm-hmm. If we do know the future, and we make decisions based on knowing the future, then do we alter that future if we make a decision that would be against the future that we foresaw?
Well, let's say you see something bad that's going to happen to you. The way you change it is, like, Rob, give your example about the dream with the bike accident.
The bike accident.
See, he doesn't even remember. This is not good. Okay. In a dream, Rob dreamed on January 6th.
Oh, okay. Yes, I got it now. Okay. Yeah, I had this dream that it was January 7th, actually.
Oh, okay.
This was sometime in December. This was a few years ago. It was very specific that on December 7th.
No, January.
January 7th, I was going to fall on my bicycle, and I do a lot of off-road biking where we go over log piles and roots and stuff, and we do fall down occasionally, but we get back up and ride. That this was going to happen. I was going to fall, and I was going to be killed. I was going to die. And so I decided, well, I'm not going to, I don't think, at first I thought maybe I should challenge this, but then I talked to somebody who's some psychic abilities, and she said, no, don't challenge it, because you're not going to die, but you'll be paralyzed, and it will be like death for you. And that was enough for me. So every year since then, I have avoided the whole week of January 7th from riding my bike. And I still ride. And now I have a partner that I ride with. We've been doing it for a few years. And he got onto this and he thought, well, maybe it refers to me. I'm not riding that week either.
Wow.
But that's a case where, you dream something and you can take action to avoid it. Mm-hmm. So you can change the future.
So I didn't want to find out if that was...
You guys going back and forth on that date reminded me of Mr. and Mrs. Smith when they're with Brad Pitt and Jolie.
Oh, right.
At the very beginning, they're talking to the marriage counselor, and Brad Pitt character says 5 or 6 days ago, and she says 6. And he said 5 or 6 days ago, So they went back and forth 3 or 4 times. You guys kind of sounded like that, man. But,
we've married a long time.
Okay, so look, and again, everyone has had, I think, kind of premonitions. And what about when somebody meets somebody and they feel that there's something about them in their presence, maybe in a group setting, or they're out and they meet somebody and they get this feeling that maybe, and it seems like a lot of those seems like you mentioned earlier omens. I mean, it just seems like there's something negative there. What is that feeling there?
Something negative or positive?
Negative. I'm going with the negative here. I mean, you see them. I mean, it's like they could stab you. You know, if you think about them enough, you got this feeling that they're. What is that?
I'd act on it. Get away.
I mean, I know what you're talking about. A person can be smiley and friendly and maybe a little too over friendly, and you start just picking up on something that maybe this person isn't who he or she actually.
It's one of those gut instincts.
It's a gut instinct because there's nothing that the person has said or done really that can make you feel that way, but you sense it, and it's just this underlying sensation that you're picking up, and it's important to
where is
to
that
act on those.
Okay, guys, where is that sensory perception at?
That is a good question. You really ask good questions.
I'm a cowboy. I'm supposed to.
That's true. I think I think we're all born with intuition. It's the sixth sense.
Yeah, and
I mean, most people at some point in their lives have a gut feeling to do or not do something, to walk away from somebody or something. Mm-hmm. And if you honor those gut feelings, well, you should honor them always.
Yeah, sometimes these gut feelings don't make much sense, though. I had this instance once. I used to do a lot of windsurfing, and I went on this local lake in the neighborhood where we lived, and I got out on the water, and I forgot to take my billfold out of the swim shorts I was wearing, and I went down and lost the billfold, and I didn't realize it at the time until I got back in and was putting my stuff away that the billfold was gone, and I knew it had to be out in that lake. I went home, but I just had this crazy feeling that billfold was going to come back to me. I took no effort at all to call the credit card companies to try to get a new driver's license. Like 5 days went on like this, and Trish said, "Aren't you going to do something? Your money's gone, and your credit cards are gone." And I said, "No, I'm that billfold is coming back to me." And I got a call on this. I think this happened on a Saturday, and like it was the next Thursday or Friday, I think it was. I got a call, and it was a man who said, Rob McGregor? I said, yeah. I found your billfold. I was fishing with a net, and I pulled. And first he said, I'm glad. First thing he said, I'm glad to hear your voice that you're still alive. I found your billfold in the bottom of the lake.
Wow.
Fishing with a net, and I thought you were down there too. And so he said, all your money is here. It's wet. I'm drying it out, and you can come and over to my house and pick it up. So I went over there, and it turns out he was having the next day. He was having a party there, and he was an Indian man from India, and all of his friends were there, and they had it must have been about 50 people there, and they had the Indian food and all the smells of the food and Indian music, and the women were dressed in these long saris, and I was just walking through this, and the only non-Indian person, and they're looking for this guy, and there were like 3 of them with the same name, and where is this guy? And I finally find him out in the garage, and he hands it to me, and I look at him, and I said, my God, I know you. Just the week before I had met this guy, he had come to our house, and he owns a lawn service, and he wanted to know if I'd like to hire him to do our landscaping. And I talked to him for about 10 minutes about it, and then he went on his way. That was the guy who was fishing with a net and found my billfold.
Wow.
So that's a mind-blowing story, that I can't get out of my head.
Well, I'm glad you weren't at the bottom of the lake too there, man. But okay, we've got a question here from our chat moderator, Jay. Can we cause ourselves to be able to dream about the future?
Yeah, I think we can. And, again, you have to be open to it. And before you go to sleep, say, okay, I would like to incubate or have a dream that's going to answer some question that you have or is going to show you some future event that you need to know about. In fact, this guy who did the financial thing for our car lease said that after he won the lotto the first time through a dream, I think the second and third times he requested a dream. So, yeah, to answer that question.
Yeah, I've never been good at numbers in dreams.
Yeah, I think that's
or
tough.
Reading. I have a book open in front of me, and I just can't read those words in the dream.
I had a guest on a few weeks ago. I told him about a specific dream that I had that came true the next day, and he told me that I should, after the show, he told me I should have a pen and paper by my nightstand there, and as soon as I wake up, whatever it is that I dreamed, write it down then. And I was going to, but I'm just lazy. Now I've heard some people say that they use their phone, they have it set for record, so all they got to do is push it, and then you just talk it and you say your dream in.
Oh, that's a good
way.
idea.
But
Yeah, I never thought of that.
So yeah, I mean that would be a good way to do it because man, writing is an arduous task. But because a lot of times we like to tell our dream, we like to tell somebody what our dreams is anyway. So if we get it on an audio book type of thing, it could develop into a book. Then I guess years later we can go back and see how many of those things came true, or if any of them came true.
Well, I've gotten quite a bit of information through dreams. Just back in the 90s, I guess it was after we moved to this house. Anyway, one early morning, that's when I seemed to have most of my precog dreams. I dreamed that an astrology book I had written had been bought by Russia. I thought, I woke up, I thought, okay, this is interesting. I've never sold subrights to Russia. So later that morning, I get a call from the subrights department at my agent's office, and she says, okay, we've sold your book to Russia. Now, that's a thing. I mean, it wasn't for tons of money or anything, but it was just it caught my attention.
Yeah.
And it made me realize that I think we do this more often than we believe we do.
And also the creative process is when you're really focused on something, working on a creative project, things can come up that can be precognitions, premonitions. Trish twice has written novels. She's written quite a few novels, and she's written novels that have manifested in reality. Tell her about.
Yeah, this is a complicated story, though. Okay.
Not really.
In 1992, I wrote a book called Storm Surge.
Okay.
I sent it off to my editor at Hyperion, which I guess it still is a subsidiary of Disney. And in the book, Miami is destroyed by a Category 5 hurricane named Alfonso. And the day I mailed it off, a tropical wave came off of Africa. By the day my editor was reading the book, 10 days later, this tropical wave had become Hurricane Andrew. So now Andrew didn't destroy Miami, but it destroyed Homestead, which is a little bit to the south.
And they, for years, they said it was a Category 4, but
No,
then
it was a 5.
Yeah, and then they changed it. Studying the data with new information, they decided it was a Category 5. So.
And this was striking in a couple of regards. In fiction and in real life, both hurricanes were the first named storm of the season and began with an A.
Well, yeah, at least you got the A right. It'd be even more freakier, of course, if it was Alfonso. But
Yeah, right. Well, yeah.
Hey, look, man,
I think I'd retire.
I'll go with the A's too. I like to reach. Okay, so I'm going to go with the A's being the significant synchronicity on that one.
Yeah. And they were both Category 5 storms.
Okay, there you go, right there. See,
tightly compacted, rather than these sprawling masses like we got here in Florida in 2005.
And then when the book came out, there were people responding saying, "Oh, she wrote this book after Andrew came, and she's trying to take advantage of Andrew and make a novel out of it." And that wasn't true at all.
Oh my God, you know.
all right. Hey, we got this question from Chris Wilson out of the live chat. It says, "What's your guys' thoughts on sleep paralysis?"
That's interesting.
Interesting.
I just had that experience recently, and I can't ever remember having the sleep paralysis. And what it was is I was just taking a nap during the afternoon, and I I got pretty deep into sleep, and then I was coming awake after about 15 minutes or so. That's usually how long I take a nap, and just to refresh me. And I was coming aware of being where I was, but I couldn't move. And it must have lasted 20, 30 seconds. And it was a kind of a freaky experience. I was just like frozen there, and then I finally came out of it. So it was nothing very unusual beyond that for me. But there are some people who have that sleep paralysis as the first step of moving into out-of-body experiences, lifting out of their body. And that's the trigger is the paralysis, and then feeling a vibration in their body after that, and then just turning aside or moving one way or another.
And the soul or the essence just
lifts out of the body, and suddenly they're up by the ceiling, and they look. It's not a lucid dream because you're looking down
at your body.
At your body, you're out of your body.
Well, now, most people that have sleep paralysis feel like they're going to die. They're not floating away.
Yeah, well, that's different experiences for different people.
Regardless, it's scary.
Yeah, I'll go with the hovering above the body. Rather, I don't want to die yet. I got a lot of things to do. All right. I noticed that in the live chat, was scrolling down there, that one of our viewers named Dreamwalker said that they have 10 plus journals, and directly to you, Dreamwalker, is any of those dream journals, any of those dreams come true? Just say yes or no or some short thing in there. And here's a question for you. What do you think about astral projection and dreaming? Are they the same?
No, definitely not. Astral projection is the same as out-of-body experiences. You are awake when you have these experiences. People who have these experiences oftentimes never went to sleep at all, but they're able to get into this state where they feel these vibrations. Some of them, like I said, have the sleep paralysis. Other people don't have that, but just start feeling the vibrations and are able to. They have developed their own techniques and are able to move out, so they're
able to explore
the neighborhood, explore their house, so some people have this experiences while they're in surgery, and they're floating up by the ceiling, and they can hear the surgeons and the nurses what they're saying, and then later confirm the experience, or they can see things. Go to a friend's house and see something on a shelf, and ask that person if they have it on the shelf, and they're often said, "What were you doing in my house?"
What if somebody was sort of training themselves, trying very hard to get a dream or a vision? How do they know they're not going to open the door to some nasty damn demon coming up in there?
Well, when people are afraid about things like demons, we always tell them, okay, before you go to bed, visualize yourself surrounded by white light. Smudge your house.
Wait a minute. Does white light scare the crap out of demons?
Well, it supposedly protects you.
Is that the bad color for the demons?
Yes,
That movie, in the movie The Village, red was the bad color.
That's true. Yeah, that was a crazy movie.
And they really kind of let you know whether there was or whether there wasn't. They kind of blurred the line between somebody in a suit acting like the red demon, and there really actually was one. I think there actually was one. But so white light scares the crap out of the demons and keeps them away.
Or it protects you. I mean, it's just white light being purity.
Or gold light.
Gold.
Or you could imagine that you're wearing this skin-tight suit of gold or silver, and that it's a protective suit. It's comfortable, it's protective, and there's going to be no harm in your journey in your dreams or beyond.
I mean, even Robert Monroe, who wrote...
No, I was going to say, if white light is to demons, then the color they would like to make them feel comfortable would be like yellow light. Like yellow snow. I'm just saying. Maybe that's what they like. I don't know. All right. Here's. Have you guys ever heard of Orgon?
Orgon, the state?
No, Orgon, the anti-demon. It's a stone. It's Orgone. Have you ever heard of that?
Oh, I have heard of this. I don't know much about it.
Yeah, I've heard of it too.
I saw it actually. There was a bookstore in Orlando when we were visiting our daughter. I saw this stone, and I asked the woman what it was for.
Well, one time somebody sent me a box of that. Okay, they're like
really?
They're like little bricks, and they had a penny in them and a spring, and it was amber epoxied all together into like a little hockey puck looking thing. And somebody sent me a box of them, said that I need to plant them all around my house to keep. Well, it keeps your demons away, it keeps your aliens away, and it scares the crap out of Bigfoot if you get a bunch of them coming around. So I mean, it's an all around protectant.
The other thing that's good, I found,
and if you buy one right now, we'll send you another one free.
Another thing that's good if you're afraid of demons and just general negativity is to put a mirror at various points outside your house, like on the outer walls. So any negativity that comes towards you is reflected back out again.
Yeah, we had this neighbor who and we both have dogs, and we had some conflict over the dogs, and he
called the cops on us.
Yeah, he called the cops on us twice.
On you guys?
Just ridiculous stuff. And so finally, and he wouldn't talk to us. He'd call the cops instead of just saying, "Come over and state what his issue was." But anyhow, so we we have a big oak tree outside my window, so between our house and his house, and I put this mirror facing his house, and that seemed to help.
It did.
Yeah, we haven't had cops over here for a while.
Well, I tell you what, that mirror sounds all right, but I'm telling you, man, the Oregon probably would have worked on them too.
It probably would have.
I can't believe somebody would call the cops on you two guys, man. The nicest people out there.
Well, it was because of our dog and his dog.
Yeah.
It was dog stuff.
Yeah. Well, hey, what about this? Listen, just briefly, because we do talk about aliens every now and again, but aliens in the backyard. Now, I think when you were on the program last time, you said you guys seen some aliens in your backyard.
Well, we wrote about somebody who saw a craft in his backyard.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we have had after we wrote that book, we had like 3 experiences of seeing sightings of lights in the sky. The most dramatic one was we went to a Barnes and Noble, and we went to the New Age section. We were looking, and I picked up a UFO book, and I said, I don't think I've ever seen this book. And we looked at it and said, I guess I'll buy this. And we walked out in the parking lot, the book in the bag, and there's this light right several hundred feet, maybe 400, 500 feet. And it wasn't a helicopter. There was no sound. It was just hovering there, and we were standing there staring at it. It moved a bit around, and people would walk by, and we noticed nobody else looked up. When somebody's looking up, you usually look, what are they looking at? Nobody looked up as they walked by, so nobody said anything, communicated anything that they were seeing this as we were seeing this. And so after about 10 minutes of watching this pretty brilliant light, Trish said, well, I have to go over to the drugstore. And so we drove over just about a block away, and she goes in, and I'm parking, and the light has moved over so I can still see it, because it's in a different position on the other side of this building, but now I can see the light again. And that was a freaky one for us, but not hardly as freaky as the story from the alien in the backyard that happened to a Canadian man.
Do you guys go around like as a team and search out the stuff that kind of esoteric stuff, interesting stuff?
Yeah, that's what we like to do. I mean, we've always had that interest since we were both young. And it just seemed natural to us to be curious about mysteries of the unknown, and we've always been surprised that other people don't have this interest. And in fact, when we met, we were both in circumstances where we didn't have anybody else to talk to about things we were exploring, reading books, and thinking about, because nobody had the similar interest. And then I was working as a newspaper reporter, and I interviewed Trish for an article, And we got talking afterwards, and suddenly we started talking about the Seth books, and we both had read these Seth books from the 60s and 70s, and which is about channeling and
well, it's about the nature of reality.
Nature of reality, and so neither one of us knew anybody who had any interest or who had read any of those books. So we had a commonality right there, and then hit it off. And Trish went home and said to her roommate, I just met the man I'm going to marry."
Wow.
I just knew it.
Did you say that, Trish?
I did not know that.
Yeah, he did not know that. I did.
So you met him, and then you said, you went home, you said, "This is the man I'm going to marry."
Yep, to my roommate. And she
Wow.
goes, "Oh, really? How do you know?" And I said, "I don't know how I know."
Wow. Hey, listen, guys, we're right at the top of the hour. We take about a 5-minute break. Anything you'd like to say about your website or your books, you go right ahead at this time.
Okay. The place where we post regularly is blog.synchrosecrets.com. And from there, you'll see all our books and the various websites.
Yeah, and website synchronicity.com is the website. And so this is our latest book. And what else do we have?
And it's so much fun.
You can see a lot of other books we have out, like the Synchronicity Highway, which we wrote.
Aliens in the Backyard.
Aliens in the Backyard, the 7 Secrets of Synchronicity, Synchronicity and the Other Side, about synchronicity and ghosts and spirits. So lots of stuff.
Okay. All right. I'm going to tune you down. Stay on the line. We'll be right back with you in 5 minutes. I mean, one of them just likes to get up in your face all the time. Which one's that?
Simba.
Right.
Because hence Simba, like a cymbal, is always clanging for your attention.
That's true.
Very good.
Yeah, that's good.
I believe.
Actually, he was named after the Lion King.
Oh yeah, Simba the Lion King. I can understand that.
Yeah.
And of course, the Simba the Lion King was named after a symbol.
Yes, that's true.
So a symbol of a cat. Anyway, so back to dreams and precogs. Every time you say precog, I think of Minority Report.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a great movie.
And, we're not too far from that with the scanning of the eyeballs. Some people say, well, hey, and I don't think it's internet lore, but some people are getting chips in their wrists, some kind of chip.
Yes,
right.
In Sweden, they're doing that for one place. I saw a video about it, and like you come to work and you can just hold your wrist up to the scanner and pass through the get through the doorway or whatever.
Yeah,
I think technology is moving so fast that it's everything Philip K. Dick wrote about is going to be true.
As you know, though, in the Minority Report, they had to, the Tom Cruise character had to grab a spare set of eyeballs, from somebody. And of course, his eyeballs went rolling down and they went to a drain and he barely caught them. But it seems that if somebody wanted, instead of stealing your wallet, they could simply, grab you and just cut that chip right out of your wrist. So I don't know how much more security there is in that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just all very weird.
But I'm keeping my eyeballs, man. I'm not going to give them up.
Just,
so that part of the thing. Okay, so in the first hour we did talk about omens. I want to talk a little bit more about that because, if we're given advice or heads up on a negative situation that's coming, why wouldn't we want to take that advice?
On a negative?
Yes.
Well, it's something that you can be aware of, and like that. That was negative advice. That dream I had about that I would be killed on my bike on January 7th, and so I took that advice and didn't challenge it and have avoided it.
Okay, now you use the word advice. Advice is usually given, so I'm segueing into this part of it. Who's given the advice?
That's a good question.
I think that's a really good question. I mean, my personal feeling is that we live in a universe that is alive. It's a collective. I think that at any point we can tap into the past, into the future. But these are just.
I think
these are tools we have.
I think you're getting it maybe from your higher self or your soul.
And some people believe it comes from God. Whatever the source, let's use it.
Mm-hmm. Well, one way or another, it seems to exist. Mm-hmm. So saying I don't want to know because it's a spooky metaphysical thing. Look, if I'm going to die on January 7th, I want to know about it. I don't care if it's, you can call it metaphysical or you can call it, maybe a message from an angel or even your higher spooky self. But hey, if it lends that, we need to listen to that. I mean, we do get messages. I think everybody gets messages. And then, so there's a particular message on omens, to change what we're doing. Again, you say God could give you that, but who else will give you that?
Well, your higher self.
Okay, wait a minute. What's a higher self?
Your unconscious?
I think this whole question that we haven't talked too much about, predestination, whether some things are set in stone and everything can be changed, free will. I think that's a combination. I think there are some things that
maybe certain mass events.
Mass events that are going to happen, like the sinking of the Titanic. There were a lot of people who didn't go on the Titanic, and they changed their reality. They didn't die. They had dreams. They had premonitions, and there were 800 people that had tickets did not show up.
Just like 9/11.
And like 9/11, not going. They couldn't stop the event from happening, but they sensed something was wrong.
Or they dreamed something.
Right. And so I think you can make a change that affects you personally, but you may not be able to change the event itself.
Like, let's say somebody had a dream that, 3 very specific airlines with flight numbers and everything were going to fly into the World Trade Center. Who would believe that? I mean, you could go to the FBI and say, okay, here's what I see happening. They'd put you in jail. They'd lock you up.
Put you on Ritalin anyway.
Yes, on Ritalin for sure.
Here's a question I just saw. Just a basic question. What are dreams?
Gee. Nightly entertainment. No, I mean, I think dreams, it used to be that dreams were, they used to think, the psychologists did, that dreams were just the day's remnants. It was your unconscious mind just sifting through stuff.
And that's part of it, yeah.
Yeah, that's part of it. But then Carl Jung came along and said, no, that's not it. Dreams can be our greatest conduit to knowledge, to understanding the collective past of the planet, of man, the future collectively and personally. So that's a loaded question.
Okay. Okay. So, what are dreams?
Yeah, right.
Come on now. And, you don't have to have the answers. I think it's a good question, to crank that down. Is it like in the Ten Commandments, if it's a man, bring him to me in chains. If it's a myth, bring it to me in a bottle. I just want to know what a dream is. Is it a vapor? Is it molecules? Is it quantum physics manifesting in the synapse of the brain, sending electrical impulses to project an image? And if so, who's directing the image?
Yeah.
Now answer the question.
Well, one thing about dreams is there's people say they never dream, and that's not true, because everybody dreams. It's just some people never remember their dreams. They don't focus on their dreams. Mm-hmm. And, what they are is like asking what is electricity. I mean, even scientists cannot really explain what electricity is. We can see it and manifest it, but nobody really can explain exactly what electricity is.
Guys, I was watching a program on Netflix. I think it was called the Invention of the Internet, or I don't know how, or the origin of the internet. And it went to, I think it was UC Berkeley, they actually have a room there where the very first email was sent. And,
wow.
And it was, it got cut off. It was supposed to be you something, but they were on the phone, and the scientists were on the phone, and he was talking to another college, and he hit a Y. And he said, "Did you get that?" And one of the guys, wherever he was in another state, said, "Yes, I got a Y." Then he hit a O, and then I got an O, and then he hit a U. Well, the U never came through. So, they had an issue there. But but he went on to explain, the narrator went on to explain, as they were writing these unbelievably complicated formulas on a chalkboard with some kind of chicken scratch you'd not even believe. And the guy was just writing, just going along. He's saying that the development of the coding is such that it will know what you want to send before you send it in the future. And so I thought, wow, I've never even heard of that. But just think about the fact that all this information is flying around. You know, when I hit a key, when I'm talking to you, it's not bumping into anything. You can explain it to me with all the communication flying around all over the world. How come this stuff isn't getting messed up? And we're, like even when you're on the phone, how come you're not talking to somebody else? How can that conversation stay by itself without bumping into something on the same kind of wire?
Right. Yeah, that's a really interesting.
And when you Google a question, how come your question comes up before you even finish writing it?
Okay, that's metaphysical right there. Google says they said within 20 years they'll be able to download your psyche because they'll know more about you than you will, and they'll be able to recreate you into an avatar.
I could believe that.
Now that's some spooky crap, man.
In 20 years.
I don't think the world can handle another cowboy, but on the other hand, if I can live forever, but I get to pick my avatar body. I guess I'd want to. But okay, so we're not going to get the answer to what dreams are we?
No. Here's a question: do animals dream?
Well, yes, I have seen a dog that clearly is running while he's sleeping.
I have too.
And you can hear him go like he's so animals can dream. Well, what about bugs? How come they're always left out of the matrix? Can't they dream too?
I think all living creatures dream. I think plants can dream of a sort, have a sort of dream. Mm-hmm. I mean, they respond to human voice. They respond to human emotion.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Animals, or not animals, but
plants.
Plants. But also insects, part of the animal kingdom, I guess. But,
so we're putting all life in there, and I see there's a running conversation in the chat line about dogs running and barking because you can hear them bark sometimes when they're sleeping.
Yeah, right.
They are clearly dreaming. So it's not an exclusively human thing. So therefore, if humans do, animals do, and I guess you would even think that birds do. So then you guys mentioned or are suggesting plants. Then maybe we're just saying as a whole, all living things can dream because of the basic spark of life that all living things have.
That's what I think. I mean, we may not be able to ever talk to a plant about its dream or to a dog or a cat or whatever, an insect. But I think to some extent we're all involved in the living matrix.
Mm-hmm. But we don't know when you talk about dreams. Now let's get back just a little bit more on that then, because we are talking about sensing the future, which will require dreams. It seems like as a precursor. But is the dream coming from an external source or is coming from an internal source?
Maybe both.
Maybe both.
Oh, now that's it. Okay. Are you guys politicians?
No.
We're done.
Only in
with
terms of getting published.
Politicians' days are numbered, people. It might be back power to the people, but okay. So I guess externally, internally. So then let's just talk about the internal parts from a scientific point of view. And I've had discussed this on the program many times that the sort of atheist scientific community says that there are bits of information on synapse and somehow they can connect together and they formulate a dream. But there's also things. But then it means
a lot more.
You have to be able to have something to impregnate your synapse. You have to have something to impregnate a vision, an image through your eyes and into your brain and into the memory. But what about when your dream has things that were never impressed upon you through the vision or any other way? When you have a dream that has something you've never seen before, but yet it exists. And you can describe it. Wouldn't that pretend that there was an external source that put that in there?
I think it's just that you become more developed internally and you're able to tap into this larger collective of humanity.
Right. Well, neurologists say everything is in the brain. Now, this synapses, and that's how the brain functions. That's where the mind is, but it's not. The mind is separate from the brain, and the brain is just like a means of transmission of energy, of information. And where's it coming from? It's the mind is able to tune into things that are taking place, that are past, and in some instances are future. Things are taking place elsewhere. So the mind has that potential, if not something we see in the everyday world that we experience.
Question coming in the live chat from Mr. Premonition. It says, why are some dreams so weird? Now, everybody's had them, and I want everybody watching the show, you've had a weird dream. Okay, so I don't want to hear it. So where do they come from? What's up with a weird dream?
I think a weird dream is like any other dream. You have to take it apart and see if there's a message, if maybe what you think is weird is actually a symbol for something else.
Right. There's a guy who had this dream and told me about it. He said that he had a dream that his second house, he had a cabin, and that the cabin was falling down in the dream. I said, well, it's falling off its foundation, he said. And he said, I think I have to go. It's a 2-hour drive. I think I have to go look for it. I think that's, and I said, well, look at it symbolically. Is there something going on in your life where you're slipping off your foundation, or something that's unsteady in your life? Whether it's your career or your family life or whatever. He said, I think my house is falling off its foundation. So I said, okay, you may be wasting your time. And 2 days later, he wrote back. He said, yeah, I went out there, and guess what? The concrete block on the corner had slipped, and actually it looked like the house was, if I hadn't done anything, it might eventually have fallen completely off its foundation. So there was a dream that was a precognition, or it was. And
he went with his gut feeling rather than listening to you as the interpreter.
The best person to interpret a dream is yourself. Because he felt pretty confident that there was actually something there. Mm-hmm. And you could look at that as clairvoyance, like seeing something in the elsewhere that's going on, through a dream clairvoyance, or also called remote viewing by the government spies, the psychic spies.
Somebody in the live chat, tell me is there a scripture that says there's a gift of interpretation of dreams? I think that there is, but I'm sure they would know better. Here's an interesting question from X-rays. What is that called when you have a baby in the womb? Sonogram? What is that?
Yeah, sonogram.
Okay. It is well notated that babies in there have dreams. You can see, just like you can tell when a dog is dreaming, that babies inside the womb are having a dream. How could they possibly have a dream when they've never been exposed to the outside world?
Maybe they're dreaming of past lives.
Yeah, it could be.
Or of their life, as a spirit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
before they came in.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Here's a weird dream I had.
Okay.
And this was where I specifically asked.
I'm going to interpret it. Go ahead.
Okay. Oh, yeah, it's a doozy. Okay. So I was pregnant. I was about 5 months pregnant.
Okay.
And I'd already had a son, or whatever it was, not a sonogram. Anyway, they already knew it was a girl. So, and we had already picked out a name for her.
Okay.
So before I went to bed, I said, okay, I'd like to have a dream where that tells me what the past life connection is between Megan and me that relates most directly to this life. So I dreamed I was in a huge warehouse all by myself.
Okay.
My water broke. Megan was born. I picked her up, and her eyes opened, and she says, Iceland. I thought, oh my God, what does Iceland mean? And I woke up, that was it. Mm-hmm. This dream puzzled me for years. Finally, when Megan was in college, she got to know a woman who was a medium. And she said, oh, Mom, you and Dad have to come out and meet this woman. She's really cool. So we went out there, and she did a reading for us. And at the end of the reading, I said, I have a question. And I told her about this dream. I said, what life is that? And how does it relate to this time? And she went into a really deep trance. I could see it because her eyes were like, slipping back and forth just like they do when you're dreaming. Mm-hmm. And she said, it was a life in Northern Europe during the winter. She said you and Rob were brother and sister. And Megan, our daughter now, was an aunt who took us in because our parents died. And she said that life was really difficult. It was always filled with hunger. There wasn't enough to go around. And because she was so helpful to us in that life, this time we were going to do the same for her. So that kind of, and that was a dream, that puzzled me for 18, 19 years.
Okay, well, my interpretation is when the water, when it broke, had it been ice, it would not have broke because it would have been solid, and therefore she was saying that she wanted to go back and she would take her scuba gear in the water. And she would have been in there a lot longer. I'm not sure if I'm getting the right. I think that's the interpretation I'm getting.
Well, okay, that's interesting. I'll take that up.
That's why the best person to interpret the dream is yourself.
So anyway, well, I mean, but everybody has dreams, and I think that we should, I mean, it is clear. There are gifts. It's a gift. It's something that we were either born with or we were given to do. It's part of us, and I don't think we should fear dreams. And I've had some really weird dreams. And even in that movie Scrooge, where he says, you didn't see those ghosts. Maybe it was a bit of stale potato, that type of thing. So sometimes food, some kind of interaction, organic interaction in our bodies, and maybe some people say if you eat spicy foods, that gives you a specific dream. Have you guys ever heard that? A specific
I've heard that.
type?
I've never.
Yeah, I've heard that too. I think there may be something to that.
We've never experimented with that.
Oh, well, you guys need to. I guess.
You don't like spicy food.
I know I don't.
A question here. I don't know if you recognize this name, but somebody says, "Can you tell the story about Connie Cannon?" Does that make sense to you guys? Somebody you know?
Which one? The alien story?
Don't know. They didn't say.
Who's asking that question? That's what
who asked that question? I wanted somebody watching the show.
Okay.
Is it a setup?
Well,
no, I don't know. She's amazing.
Yeah, she is somebody who has appeared in a number of our books. She has had a very unusual life, and
including an abduction when she was 4.
Yeah, she's been abducted. She was a medium, but she in the everyday world she was a nurse, and she was very unusual experiences, and she's provided many stories for us that have been very fascinating. And we have stories about her in just about every one of our books. So she's an interesting person. I'm trying to one of the more unusual stories we wrote about Connie was in Aliens in the Backyard, when she was moving from Georgia to St. Augustine, Florida, and she was driving a car with her younger son. She had 3 sons, and the other 2 sons were with the father in the moving van that had all the furniture in, and the moving van was ahead of them, and they were driving along. It was at night.
They were on I-75.
They were on
That's
I-75,
important.
and suddenly she finds that she's no longer on I-75, and she's on this series of roads that she doesn't know where she is. And then the next thing she knows, she's on the tarmac.
On an Air Force base.
On an Air Force base. And there are military people there with rifles. She and her son are there. And there are also aliens there. There's a helicopter up above them, and there's a craft, a saucer as well. And it sounds like a dream. But so she's having this experience, and she just remembers the military guy say, if you ever say anything about this to anyone. And that's the last thing she remembers. She could not remember what was said afterwards. And then suddenly she's driving in her car again on these roads with her son, and they're feeling very strange. The son is just half awake, half asleep. And so they come to this
Convenience
store. They go in, and she says, she talks to the clerk and says, "How do I get to I-75? I'm lost." And the clerk looks at her and said, "Well, it would be the same way you came into the to the Air Force Base. There's only one gate you can take, and it's the same way out." Said, "I didn't come into any Air Force Base." And said, "You must have, because here you are." And
Warner Robins.
Yeah, it's Warner Robins. And so finally she managed to drive out, get to the gate and get out. And then meanwhile, her husband and the sons have no idea what happened to them.
This was in the days before cell phones.
Right,
Oh.
and no idea what happened to them. They make it all the way to the house, and Connie and her son do not arrive until 3 hours later. They had 3 hours of missing time when this event, whatever it was happened to them. And that was one of the stranger stories we heard from Connie. And we kind of picked this story apart, and it's a convenience store. That's kind of interesting, because military bases have commissaries. They don't have convenience stores. And she said, yeah. But then a couple years after that, I know through the internet, know somebody who actually lives very close to Warner Robins, and his father used to work on the base as a civilian. And he says, yes, there are actually 2 convenience stores on Warner Robins. One is a gas station. And so that was an interesting follow-up to that story.
Okay, that was interesting. Here, how about this question here? Can you dream that you die, or will you awaken before you do?
I think that in dreams you can do anything you can do in real life. Now, I've heard about people who've dreamed that they were about to die and immediately woke up.
Or falling.
Yeah, or falling, when you have these falling dreams, you're about to fall off a cliff or something.
Or you do fall.
Or you do fall.
Feel yourself
Yeah.
falling, and then you
wake up before you hit bottom.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also I've also heard of people who dreamed that they did die.
Mm-hmm.
And they woke up the next morning and they just remembered the dream.
Now, that reminds me of another movie, Secret Window with Johnny Depp. You guys
Did we see that one?
Have you seen that
I don't
one?
think we saw that one.
Oh, you got to watch that one. Well, in that movie, the Johnny Depp character is on his couch, and he's having a dream that he's fallen off a cliff that's way high up in the air, and he's going down into the ocean, and he's going to hit the rocks. And so he's fallen, and then all of a sudden he wakes up, or you see him wake up, and he fell from the couch to the floor, which is about 1 foot. But the dream, he was falling, which is much longer than the time it took to roll off the couch onto the floor.
Did he end up in another dimension?
Well, I don't know. But isn't that how some dreams are, kind of? They seem like they're longer, but they're really not.
Right. Yeah, some dreams.
Is it because in dreams there is no time?
Well, that's what I think. Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons that dreaming is the most common venue for precognition.
Is death the final dream?
Maybe life is.
Well, okay, I thought it was a pretty grand statement. Okay.
That is pretty good.
Let me try it again.
Can we borrow it?
Yes. Let me try yours. Is life the final dream?
Either one's good.
Selah. I rest. That's pretty good, too. All right. Here's a great question. Guest 364 says, is CERN affecting people's dreams?
Wow. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, but the problem is we don't really know. We don't have all the info on CERN.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people thought when CERN was going to turn on, we were going to move into another dimension or something, and it turned on, and the everyday world continued on. But we don't know all the effects that are happening.
What about, and then there's always this one here. What about a dream within a dream?
Yeah,
Those are cool.
Those are interesting. I've had those. It's you're dreaming that you're dreaming.
Man,
And,
that could just, it seems to me, that could go on, man.
Yeah, right.
A dream within a dream and a dream and a dream.
And you wake up from the dream and you realize, and you're still dreaming though. You're on another level of a dream, and it just shows the multidimensional aspects of reality. I think.
Guys, in the first hour you mentioned quantum physics. If people were to take and understand quantum physics and apply it to the miracles of the Bible, it would enhance their understanding of the possibility of how things could be spoken into existence, because quantum physics answers that.
Quantum physics, at least, I mean, I'm no scientist, but I love to read quantum physics books, that are for the layperson. And they really help. There's a book Michael Talbot wrote back in the early 90s called The Holographic Universe that's just fascinating. And it's still in print, and it's still it's as relevant today as it was when he wrote it. And he goes into a lot of stuff about quantum physics for people like me who don't know science.
It seems that the great architect of the universe, the great designer, has established rules, and it seems that he, and maybe people say it or them or however they want to put it, says that he actually works within his own design, within his own rules, and that humans really can't operate outside the rules that he has established. But what would it be if, say, when Jesus turned water into wine, that he didn't materialize wine from somewhere else, but in fact, through the rule of quantum physics, changed that water into wine?
Oh, that's interesting. I always wondered if what Christ was doing was showing us what we're capable of doing. If we used everything we have within ourselves.
Well, there you go. Well, that comes directly from Jesus, where he said, "Greater work shall ye do, because I go to the Father." So that could also be a greater understanding of quantum physics to change the world that you're in. Many different scriptures say, for instance, you shall say unto this mountain, "Be thou plucked up by the roots, be thou cast into the sea, and it shall obey you." That quantum physics would give you the tool and the methodology and the rules to make that happen.
Yeah, that's. I never thought of that. I think you're right. That's interesting.
So yeah, I'm just saying. So it is so much spooky, because I believe that there are rules, and one of you mentioned actually in the first hour something about free will. There's that the rule of free will. In some ways or another, we have some control, and that, like the great Star Trek Prime Directive, there may be a self restricting rule that God has used for humans, in that he will not violate our free will. That's another when I mentioned that he seems to work within rules that he himself has established.
Yeah, that's.
But yet, I think these mass events are something that exists outside of free will. That I don't think I think 9/11 had to happen. It was destined to happen, and.
See, I think it comes from a collective agreement.
Yeah, but there were a lot of predictions, a lot of dreams people had of 9/11 that it was coming. I had a psychic reading 2 weeks before 9/11, and the guy supposedly was talking about my future, and it sounded very interesting. He said, "I see two great explosions up high, and that's going to happen, these two big explosions, and the world will change. The world will never be the same as it was before." And he's talking about me, and I thought, wow, what's going on with me? And what he was tuning into was 9/11. I was certain of that after that event. But there was a lot of people had dreams of buildings collapsing, people screaming, and there was one person in particular who this happened to him twice. I think it was 1992 or 94 when the first,
93 when the World Trade,
the first World Trade
94,
Center
93.
attack. He came to work, and he turned around and went right back. Got on the train, went right back. He just didn't feel good about going to work. And he did, and that was the day when the first explosion went off in '93. And then he did the same thing on 9/11. This guy is a financial manager, and I'd like him to manage my money if I had, if I had any to manage.
There you go. I see in the live chat, one of the viewers says they had a dream, or they saw people jumping out of a high-rise building when they were 7 in division. I was directly sort of brought into that sphere when on the very day of 9/11, when a friend of mine, the morning when the first plane hit the first tower, he said, "I can't believe what I'm seeing." We were watching on TV, and I said, "Why is that?" And he said, "I'll show you." So he went to a phone, and he called up his wife, who was in bed and still asleep, and he said, "Hey, honey, remember that dream that I told you about this morning?" She said, "Why are you waking me up and calling me?" She's not had the TV on or anything. He said, "Well, do you remember that dream? Can you tell me what the dream was?" And so she was mad at him for calling her because he woke her out of sleep. He says, "Yes." He said, "You woke up and you was all sweaty, and you said you saw 2 buildings on fire and nobody could get through." And he said, "Well, go turn the TV on." So there you go. I mean, he proved point blank because, just right then, he proved that he had been given that dream, and he was not a particularly religious person of any kind. But so then why is it I know somebody did that, you know somebody, and there's many stories. Why are only certain people given those precogs, those premonitions, those visions of the future, and not all?
I think it's because I don't know that these precogs are given. I think that people who are open and receptive while they're asleep, in their dreams, I think these are the people who experience these precognitions, especially these mass events like 9/11.
So does the message of 9/11, was it going out, and let's just say that everybody else, their frequencies weren't tuned into it, but it was a message blast going across the earth?
It could be. In fact, there was a project at Yale, remember, that they did in the aftermath of 9/11. And we wrote about this in the other Synchronicity book. I can't remember the particulars, but yeah, I mean, there was
consciousness.
The Consciousness Project.
Yeah, I can't remember the details, no.
But yeah, to answer your question, I think that this resonated. It resonated across time and space.
I had a dream. The head of the Dream Association of America, or some kind of organization. It's a place, and it's a website where people can send in their dreams. And what he does is he amalgamates them and tries to formulate from people having the same dreams to predict the future of future events. And it says there's been some success in that. But here's a question from the live chat coming in. It says, "What exercise can people do to enhance their innate abilities?" And I don't know, it sounds like it's more than dreams, maybe all of them together, maybe premonitions and, different things.
What they can do, the first thing is, just to open yourself to the possibility of being able to see the future. If you're coming in as a disbeliever or somebody who is frightened about omens, you're probably not going to have any of these experiences. If you're a debunker and you're only interested in the paranormal because you want to show other people that it doesn't exist, well, the likelihood that you're going to have a successful precognition, dream or otherwise, are about nil, because your belief will be manifested, but that doesn't mean what you believe is what other people believe or what they manifest. So there's the factor of the interest. You have the interest in the mysteries of the unknown, the paranormal, the greater reality. And as we said before, just watching for signs and even asking. The good exercise is just to ask a question that you want answered, and then go out and watch whatever appears.
Now right there, to go from the metaphysical to semantic, or to just the regular reading of the Bible, where it says that you can discern the signs of the times.
Right.
So there is a discernment, and you might use the word precog, but there also somebody else could use the word discernment and take it out of the spooky, creepy, demonic realm and say, well, it says over here, words it a different way. It kind of comes back to the same thing, that there is this there, and it is sort of available to us or been taken from us. And I don't see any problem with trying to find out if it is. It says, that you're supposed to even kind of look for the signs of the times. When Jesus was being born, the Magi were looking for the signs of his birth. And God didn't say, hey, you shouldn't look for the signs. In fact, he told them to look for the signs. So,
you bring up a good point here. And one of the things I was trying to remember what it was called the Global Consciousness Project. Okay. And it was out of Princeton. And what this project was about, and, if they'd had it when Jesus was born, there would have been, maybe back then it was the way the stars were. Mm-hmm. But for this project, it was done through random number generators. And one of the guys who was head of this project said that on 9/11, 37 of the random number generators, they had something like 64 placed all over the world, were active. And the fluctuations in the bell curve analysis indicated that anomalies began 2 hours before the first plane hit the World Trade Center. And as Dean Radin said, he says that means that on that fateful day, the Global Consciousness Project's bells collectively rang out around the world. So at least 2 hours before, this collective something registered on random number generators. I mean, that's pretty incredible when you think about it. It shows the power of the collective mind, the consciousness.
And it's also applying science to the what people would perceive as the paranormal.
Right. Yeah, and you could say paranormal, or you could say the spiritual. For some other.
Right.
Sure.
But you just reminded me. We were talking earlier about whether or not animals have dreams. Mm-hmm. I think it was recorded that it was the tsunami that hit Indonesia. Before it hit, an hour or two earlier, all the animals started running inland. Now, how did they know? And if they didn't know, they would be dead. So sometimes knowing something can prevent you from being dead.
Yeah. And it's funny when you read up on this. I mean, scientists generally have all kinds of explanations for this. Well, they have better instincts. They pick up minute frequencies of sound. They can do this or that. But actually, I mean, that was a 9.1 earthquake. Okay. And it triggered a massive tsunami and then slammed into 11 countries. Nearly 250,000 people died. Yet in Sri Lanka's national park, which is the largest wildlife reserve in that area, there wasn't a single report of a dead animal.
Yeah.
Not a single animal died.
Lesson learned: when the animals start running, we better start
You
running
run,
too.
exactly. I mean, in fact, we use our animals sort of as a hurricane predictor. When the National Weather Service says, "Oh, okay,
but the animals running for their lives, that's not devil. That's animals running for their lives. It's using a gift that they have, something that they were designed with, some understanding and some tuning into what was going on around them that saved their lives."
So. In fact, there was a indigenous tribe on some islands that were in that area, and the people, the tribal people, noticed the unusual behavior of dolphins, birds, and lizards, and they retreated to higher ground because of it. So they noticed what the animals were doing and took action to save their own lives.
Now, wait a minute. It seemed like I remember another event like that. I think it may have happened in Russia or China, but the animals were responding. They were responding before an event, and then the event happened, and then the people said that the scientists knew that the animals were responding that way, and they got really mad with the government because the government never told the people, but the scientists knew that the animals were responding to an upcoming event. I don't know.
Right.
Do you guys remember that or ever heard of that?
Yes, I do. And now China is a country that actually has a project that uses certain types of animals to predict earthquakes. And they have people who observe the animals, who take care of them. They live in these really nice preserves. And there's certain species which I can't recall. Let's see.
Mm-hmm. But now, isn't it? But with the advent of the internet, cell phones, laptops, tablets, the constant bombardment of data and information, to me, I mean, just common sense tells me that is going to deaden our senses, not quicken our senses. What's your guys' take on that?
It all depends. Because we have all this technology available, we can say, well, we don't need to have remote viewing or clairvoyant abilities because we have we can communicate instantaneously anywhere in the world to find out information. That's true to some extent, but some people are able to use the technology for expanding their own abilities. You can pose a question and go on the internet, and first thing you see is your answer to your question. That's another level. But what Trish was talking about with the animals, there are also people who we call planetary empaths, mm-hmm. and these people have a number of them have been in contact with us, and they have these sensations, these bodily sensations,
physical symptoms that are painful.
Yeah, planetary empaths are not happy campers. They're people who feel very sick before there's going to be some event, hurricane,
some natural or man-made disaster,
earthquake where thousands of people killed. Just before that one a few years ago in Haiti, we got bombarded by people who consider themselves planetary empaths, because we started a section of our blog about planetary empaths, and so people started reporting these experiences, and so they were very.
The problem is that they don't understand. I mean, they experience these things. They know that that means something's coming, but they can't identify what the event is or where.
They can't tell you to run to higher land because they don't know where this is going to happen. And some of these are also people have had these experiences related to terrorist attack. One, in fact, is that woman whose name came up, Connie Cannon. She gave us stuff just related to
2 days before the Boston Marathon.
No, it wasn't the Boston Marathon. It was the attack in France.
The attack, the Paris.
And she in Paris. So she was picking up on this, but she could not pinpoint where it is. So it's frustrating because they're picking up something and they know something is coming, but they can't define it in any way. And even if they could, what could they do?
Who would believe them?
Yeah, who would believe them?
And isn't that the quagmire there, that you can't understand something until after the fact?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It's almost not fair. It's almost not fair.
Well, no, it isn't fair.
By the way, I saw in the live chat somebody said that they're glad that you guys have each other.
So are we.
So,
that was nice. Thank you.
Well, no, I'm sure they meant it in a good way too, because you guys are. I've mentioned on the program, I take note when I see two like-minded people on a journey, and sometimes it reminds.
We know so many people that it's just one of the couple that are very fascinated with this, where the other one is usually the man has no interest at all. And he's very skeptical.
Well, that's a little sexist there. Why is it always?
But it's coming from a guy.
Okay, but why is it always a man that can't get the dream, can't understand that there might be other things going on out there? Because
I don't think it always
something
is
about the cave.
Yeah,
but I think women are a little more intuitive naturally than men, just like men are stronger physically than women. There's differences, obviously.
That reminds me of a movie. I don't know if I'll have to describe it. I can't think of it, but it was actually an alien movie about the aliens came. They were abducting the children. Oh, it's called The Missing. And the aliens wanted to know what the connection was between the mother and the child. It was some kind, and they couldn't understand it. And so they were taking the children as an experiment to find out why human mothers are so connected to their children. And they couldn't break this one woman they couldn't break her. They were breaking other people's connection to their missing child by eliminating it from their memory. But this one woman could not. They couldn't embrace it, and they want to know why. So there is that sort of women's intuitions. I've never heard of man's intuition. Why is that always women's intuition, man? Did the women steal it from us men? Did we have it first? I'm thinking we had it first, and you guys took it.
Yeah. You guys were too busy out in the world. We were in the cave.
Man, there's a lot of stuff going on in that cave. I know I was having my way with some women in the cave. All right, so let's see. So anyway, so you guys are on a journey together, and so where you guys heading next? You're talking about dreams. What's your next mission that you got? The Forgotten. That was the name of it. Thanks, Dreamwalker.
Okay. Yeah, we have a book that we're just completing that we've co-authored called, what is it called?
It's about spirit contact.
Yeah, but what is
Spirit
it?
communication.
See, the woman knows right there. The woman knows.
Secrets of spirit communication.
Yeah, Secrets of Spirit Communication. I think you'll like that one.
That'll be out next summer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's in process right now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we've completed and it's just going into the publisher in 1st of March, and then it'll go into the process of getting published. Yeah.
And I have a novel called You Are Mine, which is about a young woman who's an animal communicator and a cop who communicates with the dead, who solve a serial killing together.
And I also have another book that I've co-authored with Bruce Gernon. Bruce Gernon is anybody who has watched any cable documentaries on the Bermuda Triangle. Bruce has been in 36 of them. Wow. He's the authority on the Bermuda Triangle because of his own personal experiences. And we wrote in 2005, we wrote a book called The Fog about the Bermuda Triangle. And now I just completed and coming out in July is Beyond the Bermuda Triangle, which brings in stories that go beyond the Bermuda Triangle. Because after The Fog, he got so many stories about people experiences with fog and with moving through time and space in unusual ways that he handed me this whole stack of these stories that he received, and I said, you know what, most of these stories don't take place in the Bermuda Triangle, and he said, I know, it's time for the Beyond the Bermuda Triangle.
Well, here's my tip of the day: don't go into the fog, man. Exactly. The fog seems like a thin place. It just seems like the two worlds are kind of meeting up in there. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah.
Spooky.
Well, we got some great stories about the fog.
Okay. All right, guys. Well, listen, we're at the end of the broadcast. Again, anything you'd like to say about your website or your latest book, how to get them?
Come to blog.synchrosecrets.com and leave a comment. Join us in the discussion.
Yeah. And if you
have any experiences, let us know.
And if you read Sensing the Future, please go to Amazon.com and leave a little review for us. That helps.
Hopefully positive.
Yes, but people should be honest too.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Rob and Trish McGregor, appreciate you coming on the Edge Television broadcast. Can we have you on again sometime?
We'd love to. You're great. You're a terrific host.
Oh, thanks, guys. Hey, well, you stay safe out there and continue to the journey together, guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. All right,
I know, Daniel.